Hello and welcome to this Photoshop video tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to get the HDR or High Dynamic Range effect in Photoshop Elements 8. On screen at the moment we have the after image, and this shows the image after we've merged together 5 individual shots, all shot with a different exposure. So we've got that nice HDR effect, loads of tone and loads of contrast. So if I just take a look at the 5 images that we've used to create this shot, and these have all been bracketed with different exposures. Starting off with the first image, which is slightly underexposed, and that's pulled out the detail from the clouds. And as I click through, you'll see the exposure gets lighter and lighter, always getting the exposure for different areas of the shot. And finally, our 5th image is very overexposed, and that just means we've got a nice lot of detail appearing in the shadows. So what we'll do is we'll get straight into it, and the first thing I need to do is just close down our black and white HDR after image. So I'll just close that down. After I've done that, I want to open up our 5 images that we're going to use for our HDR style picture. And once we've got those open and within the Photoshop Elements editor, we'll see those appear down here in the project bin. To blend the exposures, all we need to do is go up to File, down to New, and to Photo Merge Exposure. And after a few moments, the Photo Merge Exposure window will appear. And as you see, it's done a pretty good job at blending all of those exposures together. If I just quickly click on the project bin at the bottom, we can see all 5 exposures that have been used to create our HDR styled image. Now if I want to switch off any of those images because there's a little bit of ghosting due to camera movement, or there's a few distractions that I want to get rid of like people, then all I need to do is just click into the tick next to that single exposure, and that'll remove that picture from the blend. As you see, it's lightened it up a bit, it's not quite as good, so I'm just going to switch that back on for this tutorial. Now that's done, over on the right hand side we have all of our adjustments. Now if you want to increase the highlight detail or reduce it, we just use the slider over on the right. And as I move that down, you'll suddenly see some of the sky is just becoming overexposed and a little bit burnt out, so I'll just move that back up to 50. And what you'll find is that Photo Merge will actually do a pretty good job at blending itself. So when you're getting started, it's actually better just to leave Photo Merge to do the blending itself. Now the only actual adjustment we really want to make within Photo Merge is just to reduce the saturation right down to -100, converting our colour image into black and white. Now once we've done that, all we need to do to apply that to the picture is click Done. Okay, that takes a couple of minutes just to work its way through, and once it's done you'll go back to the Photoshop Elements editor, and I'll just go Ctrl-0 just to maximise the image in screen, and now we can really start to pull out the tones and really boost the HDR look. Now before I move on to that enhancement, what I want to do is just flatten down my layers, and as you'll see, Photo Merge Exposure will actually create a layer 1, which is our blended file. So I'll just go Ctrl-E, which is the shortcut for flattening that down, or you can just left click onto the layer options and select Flatten Image. Now I've got that done, the first thing I want to do is to really boost that sky and just to darken it down just a little bit so it matches the exposure of the rest of the image. So what I want to do is just make sure that I've got my tolerance at 32. The first 2 options are ticked. And then I'm just going to left click once into the clouds. And as you'll see, that makes quite a nice selection, but there's a few areas missing out. So if I hold down Shift on the keyboard, and now I just left click again, and you'll see how that improves the selection of the sky. Once I've got the sky selected, I'm just going to refine the edge, so any adjustments we make will nicely blend in with the rest of the image. So if I click Refine Edge, I'm just going to reduce Smooth down to 0. I want my feather to be at 1 pixel, and I'm just going to expand the selection by 2%. I'm also just going to switch on the red mask, just gives me a better idea of exactly what's selected. Then I'm going to click OK just to apply that. With that done, I'm ready to start darkening down that sky detail and also just increasing the contrast of the clouds. To do this, I'm going to use levels. So if I go up to Enhance, down to Adjust Lighting, and down to Levels, shortcut for that is just Control and L. And here I want to increase the shadow detail to about 134. I'm going to leave my midtone slider exactly where it is. I'm just going to reduce the highlights slider down to about 233. And there you can just see how that sort of lightened up some of the sky detail and also darkened down, really bringing out the contrast and the detail of those clouds. So if I just click Preview Off and back on, and you can see we've now got a much more dramatic sky. So I'll just click OK to confirm that. And before I move on and start making more adjustments, I just want to remove my selection. So if I go up to Select, then down to Deselect, and that just removes our selection from that sky area. Shortcut for that is just Control D. It's now time to really get the HDR look and really kick out some of those shadows and highlight details. So to do this, I'm going to go up to Enhance, back down to Adjust Lighting, and across to Shadows Highlights. And here, just move that over to the right. I'm going to lighten the shadows at the default of 25%. I'm going to increase that right up to 45. And as you see, we're getting quite a muddy looking image at the moment. But if I boost the midtone contrast right up to 60, we can see we're starting to get a really good HDR effect image. So I'll just click OK to apply that. We're now well on the way to getting our HDR effect picture. And to really draw out some of the contrast within the image, we're going to use the Dodge and Burn tools. So I'm going to start off with the Burn tool. So if we go down to the bottom of the tool palette and we select the Burn tool, then I'm going to use quite a nice large brush, up to about 600. I want to make sure that my range is on shadows and my exposure, I'm going to take that down to 5%. Now that might seem a little bit low, but the Dodge and Burn tools can be quite destructive, and so just a little bit and carefully is how you need to apply it. So with that done, I'm just going to start to use that on the sky. And as you can see, it's just darkening down some of that sky detail a little bit more, really sort of pulling it out. And also just around a few of the other areas of the image, just increasing the contrast a little bit and adding a little bit more dynamics to the picture. Once I'm happy with my burning, just go back to the Burn tool, left click and hold and select the Dodge tool. Again, I'm going to increase that right up to about 600. This time in the range, I want to make sure I've got my highlight selected. Once again, I just want to take my exposure down to about 5%. And again, just going to work that around the image, just to pull out a few of the highlights. And with this tool, you can really sort of use it just to really add impact. And you can also build a little bit of sort of light structure across the picture as well. When you're happy with the effect, the last step we're going to do is another slight levels adjustment just to finish off. So again, I'm just going to apply a levels adjustment. So we go up to Enhance, Adjust Lighting and down to Levels. And this time I want to take my shadows up to about 14, which will just add impact into those shadow areas. I then increase my midtones to 1.09, just lightening the midtones slightly, and I'll reduce those highlights to about 244. And as you can see, that's really giving it that HDR look. So that's how to create an HDR styled image within Photoshop Elements 8.